Hey, what's up, Unbroken Nation? How do you start to step through to make that pendulum swing to go from I'm blaming the world to recognizing that through my actions, I can create the life that I want to have?
Yeah, so this is an interesting thought process, and because it's something that I've actually been processing for myself for the last couple of days. I'm going through a bit of a journey right now in terms of redefining some things, and um, I think the first thing for me is I don't get to say out loud that anything is anyone else's fault. So part of it is, I think oftentimes we feel like we have to make this massive change internally for anything else to occur. And I think sometimes we do just have to walk ourselves through it step by step. Whereas even if I think cognitively, oh, this happened because, and it's this person's fault, I don't get to say it. I don't get to open my mouth. So my brain does not get to hear my voice say that there's anything to blame anyone else for. So that's kind of a first step in that it's a really practical thing, right? That you can do because your words carry massive power in your brain. And so that's a first step. Is that I just don't get to say it out loud. Now, the second step is I have to squash it fast when I think it, right? So, one of the ways that people do end up with a lot of blame is they dwell. They dwell on things. And the more that you dwell on it, the more power you give it in your thought process. And so for me, I have to, the second I identify anything, and look, as a business owner, it's so super simple to blame a lot of things going on in the world right now, and I won't go into them. It would be really easy. And everyone around us is like, oh, yeah, no, this is why this, and this is why. Okay, you know what? I don't get to. I don't get to. I get to figure out solutions. So what I look at is number one, I squash the thought as soon as I have it. Number two, it doesn't get to come out of my mouth. But number three is anytime there is something that we want to blame someone else for, it's because we have not yet come up with the solution on how to solve that problem for ourselves. So if we can flip the script and go, okay, if I don't get to blame anyone else, it's me. If I'm the issue, guess what? I'm also the solution. I get to solve this problem. And so when we go into that thought process, then we always have something more to solve. And when it comes to this thing of, what's good enough, right? This is what I've been processing the last couple of days. So in fact, I was just telling someone this story yesterday. My husband and I, when we first met in Florida, it was literally our second date. We walked on the beach for 4 hours. We were engaged in 5 weeks, married in less than 6 months. And honestly, if he would have asked me on that second date, I would have said yes. But we spent 4 hours walking on the beach, dreaming our life together. We talked about kids and houses and cars and all of these different things, vacations, the kind of, the kind of stuff that you get excited about. And what's interesting is today, 24 years later, we live every single one of the things that we discussed, all of them. It is our life. And yet I want more. I want more. It's not good. It's good, but it's not good enough because now that I am where I am, my responsibilities have changed. I know that I have to serve more people. I know that I have to give more. I know that I have to be more. And in order to do all of the things I need to do, I've got to have more. And so this whole thing of, when is it good enough? When is it good enough? It really, it never should be. Because if it is, then we're not growing. And if we get to this point where everything is, now that doesn't mean don't be content in the moment that you're in. And this is something that I struggle with because I'm very much, I'm so goal driven that I always want to move forward. So struggling to be content in everything that I have while I'm driven to move forward is something that I constantly have to work on because it's very easy to get focused on the road and just go, okay, nothing's going to work until I get there, but that's not a healthy way to go about it either. So it's kind of this constant struggle of I'm content with where I am because this is exactly where I said I wanted to be. But now I know this isn't the destination. This was like a stopping point along the way.
Yeah, I love that. And I totally relate. As a person who is so incredibly goal oriented and looks at life from a perspective of momentum and really needing to understand the way that momentum plays a role in your life, i.e., the faster you go, the faster things start to happen, and get into this place where I watch my life evolve and change because of the choices that I make. I'm in alignment with you entirely, but it's so difficult, right? When you sit down and you go, okay, I want to have this, people lose sight of the ability that they have to create the life that they want to have. And I often, I've said this many times, I believe that we live in the matrix. Are we in a simulation? No, probably not. But we are in this wonderful place in the world where now, better than ever, we have the ability to create the framework of the life that we want, and it's literally at our fingertips. And I look at the last 18 months of my life and I go, these are the best 18 months I've ever had, and the next 18 will be better than these, and so on and so forth, because I'm always thinking about what's next. And that comes from being able to tap into my intention. And I hear you very much as a person, and from knowing you as this person who's able to not only tap into their intuition, but bring it to fruition. But that starts so much with listening to yourself. Has that always been something that you've been able to do? What was that been like? Because I know when I started like really getting serious about my journey to speak about Think Unbroken and step into this, I was like, okay, this is terrifying, but I'm going to do it. And every time I stepped further into my intuition and my gut, I just kept being able to prove myself right. What has that journey been like for you?
So it's an interesting journey for me in that I think I am very intuitive, generally speaking. So I know what my intuition is. At the same time, I love to serve people. And so I often, in terms of finding my own voice, stepping into my own intuition and things of that nature, I have let that take a back seat to all of the things that I do because someone asked me to. And so a big part of that journey for me, and this has really only happened somewhat recently, is learning how to trust myself enough to say no. And I think this is probably harder for women, generally speaking, than it is for men. And especially when you're a mom and you're a wife and you've got all these demands on your time. But understanding who I am and what I'm capable of is something that I've stepped into fully now. But I think for a long time, there's a little bit of guilt that goes along with that, right? Like if I, and I'm going to say this specifically to women that are listening to this, because somebody really needs to hear it. As a mom, especially, we are made to feel guilty for starting our own business, for not being there with our kids every minute of the day when they're little, for taking them to daycare, for you name it. There's like all of these kind of things that people associate with that. And what I want to say is you get to prioritize you. Just because you're a mom or a wife does not mean that you have to step back and take a back seat. You don't have to wait 18 or 20 years until your kids are grown to do the things that you are supposed to do. And so for me, where that really came into play is that when I started the catering company, I was 6 months pregnant with my youngest son, and my husband was in Iraq. Okay. So I had 2 boys at home. He was deployed. I was 6 months pregnant with my youngest son, no experience in the food industry. Just like it's when people say, when's the right time to start a business? Let me tell you, yeah, I picked the perfect time. And the reality is there never is a perfect time. But there were people who gave me a hard time about like, is this really what your kids need from you right now? Well, you know what? Yeah, it was what they needed, because they needed to watch me do the thing that I wanted to do because I was passionate about doing it, because I knew I was supposed to. I knew I was supposed to. And so there was no question in my mind that I needed to move forward with it. And I think prior to that time, I might have let some of those outside voices steer me in a different direction. But I'm going to tell you, I was so crystal clear on what needed to happen at that point in my life that you could not have told me anything different. And in fact, so much that when I got the idea for that company, because initially I'd been in banking for a while and I could not stand the thought of going back to a desk job, right? It's not me. I like to move. I like to be around people, and sitting in front of a computer all day is not my gig. And so I was cooking for people because I enjoyed it. My husband was deployed. I was trying to keep my mind occupied, right? And we had a fight over the phone about me spending the money he was making overseas, providing meals for other families. And, so I had this idea that I could start this meal service, right? Clearly, if people called me all the time because someone just had a baby or was in the hospital and needed some food, it's because there wasn't a service that was doing that for people. So that's where the concept came from. And I just knew that I could make something work. I had no idea what it was going to be at that time. I mean, it's turned into this massive company and thousands of employees over the years and all of these other things. But at the time, it was literally just a way so that I could stay home with the kids and not go back to a desk job. And my youngest son, his playpen was literally in my commercial kitchen, to give you an idea. So when I called my husband and said, hey, I've got this idea, this is what I think I can do with this, he said, okay. And like, for anybody who knows us, I'm the crazy idea person. He's the no man. Like, that's his job, is he's very supportive, but we have two very different risk tolerances. And so when he said, okay, I hung up on him, and he was in Iraq. And yeah, there had been times where we had been on the phone and a bomb went off while we were talking. So, maybe not the best thing in the world to do. But I also knew in that moment that the second he said, okay, figure it out, if I stayed on the phone with him, if I gave him any more time to talk, he would have talked himself out of the okay. So I needed to take the affirmation that I had at that moment and go with it. And 3 weeks later, we were knocking bricks out of the garage to turn it into a commercial kitchen, right? So when that intuition hits and you know that you need to move with something, it's important that you move fast before you have time to backtrack, before someone else gets in your head, and that's how that whole thing went down. But there were people who did think, this is not what your boys need from you right now. Well, yeah, it was exactly what they needed from me at that moment. And over the years, now my older boys, they saw the struggles of that time because they were 10 and 7, right? So they remember how tired I was sometimes, and they remember some of the growing pains and all of that. But they look back at it now and are using some of those lessons to help them with other things that they're going through at the moment, because they know that if they can watch me go through that and do everything I've done over that time frame, that they've got a lot of strength inherently in them, just by virtue of being in that environment.